Hello, royal watchers. Imagine the crackle of autumn logs inside Gatcom's drawing room fire, the faint smell of saddle soap drifting from the stable block and, just beyond the half-drawn curtains, a timetable so crammed that even the grandfather clock groans in disbelief. There, in the center of the whirling paper storm, stands Princess Anne, the hardest-charging thoroughbred ever to pound the royal turf, cheeks pink with fresh country air, eyes sparking at the prospect of yet another village fete, regimental parade, or maritime conference. And just off her shoulder, calm, steady, watchful, hovers the man who has turned keeping up with the Princess Royal into something approaching a full-contact sport. Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence doesn't wear a crown, doesn't crave a headline, yet inside palace corridors his quiet, measured voice has become the newest power in play. Because when Anne says yes to a 50th engagement in as many days, Sir Tim is the one gently clearing his throat, reminding her that even champion racehorses need water between furlongs. It's an arrangement forged far from flashbulbs. Back in 1992, when Scotland's brown heather rolled beneath low Balmoral cloud, Anne and Tim slipped into Crathy Kirk, and sealed their life pact with nothing louder than the rustle of hymn pages. The nation hardly blinked. Post-divorce remarriage wasn't quite de rigueur for royals back then, but the ceremony stitched together two people who share a secret taste for understatement. She calls herself Chief Bottle Washer. He calls himself the boss's bag carrier. Both smile at the absurdity, then return to work. Fast forward 3 decades, and that understated union has evolved into a strategic duet. Anne barrels through 474 official events in a single calendar year, planting trees, knighting war heroes, handing out rosettes at Sheepdog of the Year, while Sir Tim shadows her stride for stride. He isn't there merely to proffer the next speech, or nudge the bouquet into her hand. He is there to mark the warning lights on an engine running permanently in the red. Whenever courtiers mutter that the princess's schedule looks more like a military campaign than a civil diary, the murmurs invariably end with the same sentence: "Thank goodness Sir Tim's watching." He watches in little ways a camera never catches, slipping a travel mug of ginger tea into Anne's car just before dawn, inserting a penciled question mark beside a particularly brutal run of weekend engagements, nudging Gatcom's chef to load the freezer with Anne's favorite lasagna, because he knows 3 late-night returns in a row will leave her too tired to think about supper. Palace aides joke that Sir Tim could run NATO logistics if he ever fancied it. Then they remember he has, in fact, commanded entire warships through the Persian Gulf, which might explain why juggling Anne's itinerary feels like child's play. And yet nothing about this balancing act feels playful when the princess refuses to lift her boot from the throttle. Advisors recall those tense diary meetings, and flipping pages faster than a casino croupier, declaring, "Of course I can fit Gloucestershire young farmers between the Cape Verde Trade Roundtable and the Naval Cadet Inspection." The lone voice daring to suggest a breather isn't a private secretary clutching color-coded timetables. It's the man at the far end of the varnished table, fingers steepled, gaze steady. He says, "Not Anne, never Anne, always, inside office walls. I would value Saturday afternoon together, if your program allows." There's no accusation, no theatrical sigh. Just a husband reminding a wife that marriage, like monarchy, needs oxygen. Sometimes she teases him, "I thought sailors adored wind and weather." Tim answers that sailors also respect safe harbor. And for a heartbeat, the room breathes. Make no mistake, Sir Tim's interventions aren't about throttling the work itself. He reveres duty as devoutly as his wife, perhaps more so after decades watching the Crown's machinery from the back row. But he also understands durability. He has seen hulls crack, because steel fatigues, no matter how polished the paintwork. Anne's spirit is titanium. Her body is still flesh, and 60+ years of knee-deep mud at horse trials leaves its mark. Last winter a doctor noted a hairline stress fracture in one ankle, tiny, almost invisible. Anne shrugged, changed into sensible shoes and caught the helicopter to open a new air ambulance base. Tim caught up with her that evening, steering her gently toward the sofa, forcing her to elevate the leg. "Admiral's orders," he said. She rolled her eyes, but the next morning the ankle was strapped and a low-key engagement quietly reassigned to another royal. It is a dance of firm suggestions and loving concessions, and insiders are beginning to realize just how much Anne trusts the man at the helm when she finally lets the reins slacken. In those rare slots when the diary falls silent, Gatcombe Park becomes their shared refuge, Tim on the mower, and in the tack room, both emerging at dusk to clink tumblers of single malt on the terrace. Neighbors swear you can hear their laughter drifting over the Cotswold stone walls, sudden and bright as a peal of bells. For that laughter, Sir Tim will keep firing cautionary flares every time his wife volunteers for a fourth straight weekend on the road. His protective streak rises in subtle gestures at public events too. Watch any footage closely. When the press pack lurches forward, Sir Tim angles his body just enough to shield Anne's shoulder. When a microphone booms too near her ear, he pivots and absorbs the shock. At crowded receptions he positions himself by the flower arrangement nearest the exit. One nod allows Anne to glide out without awkward goodbyes. He is the unglamorous art of royal crowd control wrapped in a naval double-breasted jacket, and it gives the princess exactly what she needs. Time to shake 10 more hands without jostle, time to finish a sentence without reporters tripping over her heels, time to breathe. But time is also his weapon when he feels the schedule tipping toward overload. It unfolds in supportive irony. Your loyal equerry would love one uninterrupted weekend to test fly that tractor mower. If you happen to be home to supervise, the pheasants will feel very reassured. Translation: please don't book another 6 a.m. farm visit. The estate and your ankle need you here. More often than not, she concedes, and within the private circle, staff exchange relieved glances. Yet concession does not come naturally to a woman who scored her first Olympic ride before most of today's influencers were born. 30 years of marriage have softened the edges, not dulled them. Anne still rises at dawn to draft handwritten replies to correspondence marked urgent. She still insists on squeezing every ceremonial passing out parade between Parliament's opening and trooping rehearsal. Tim accepts the inevitability. His mission is to place small commas in the never-ending sentence of service. Enough pauses to keep the story legible. And oh, how that story gallops. 474 public duties last year, nearly 2 engagements every single day. If she slowed to King Charles's relatively modest 329, aides swear she'd fret about languishing at home, like a lazy house cat. The monarch himself, battling fatigue from treatment, privately thanks his sister for propping up the sovereign timetable. But even he occasionally pulls Tim aside and mutters, "Do try to make her rest." The Admiral smiles a half-smile that says he's working on it. Royal watchers wonder aloud, will her 75th birthday mark a pivot? A senior courtier hints that Charles could invite his sister to choose branded priority themes, maritime heritage, rural skills, women in sport, then decline events outside those pillars. But Anne loathes the idea of choosing between good causes like colored marbles in a jar. Every charity matters, she says, especially the ones nobody else champions. Sir Tim knows he won't change that conviction. What he can change is the tempo. Encourage shorter speeches, cluster engagements geographically, swap the red-eye helicopter hop for an overnight stay so she gets 6 decent hours of sleep. These are small levers, but small levers moved St. Paul's Dome into place. As his influence expands, courtiers sense a shift in the princess's once unyielding diary culture. Where an entire weekend trip might once have been crammed with 4 counties, a quiet Saturday morning now appears, labeled private. What does private look like for Anne? A hack across Gatcombe's fields, a brisk walk to the farm gate, the Admiral brewing coffee in the boot room while she rubs down a sweaty mare. 2 hours later she's back in city clothes, heading for a Veterans Awards lunch. But those 60 or so rural minutes have already paid dividends in posture, in focus, in sparkle. Sparkle matters. The British public forgives wrinkles in protocol, if eyes shine with authentic energy. They recognize exhaustion too, and reward it with concern that quickly curdles into criticism. Why isn't someone looking after her? Sir Tim intends to dodge that narrative long before it forms. Loyalty to his wife means loyalty to the crown, because an at half speed still outpaces half the royal roster. He'll do whatever it takes to ensure that engine stays greased. That devotion quietly impresses younger Wales and Sussex staffers, who grew up skeptical about marriage inside the royal fishbowl. They watch the Admiral lead, and through a crowd with the same gentle hand-on small-of-back gesture William uses for Catherine. In that moment hierarchy melts, only partnership remains. It's a living lesson in how duty can devour a relationship unless the partners form a two-person shield. Of course, cynics murmur that Sir Tim enjoys the influence. If and slows down, he secures more fireside evenings and less time twiddling thumbs while she cuts another ribbon. The cynics misunderstand. He fell in love with the woman who jumps into life headfirst. Clipping her wings would tarnish the very spirit that drew him close. His aim is not to ground her, merely to insist that after the flight she glides to earth instead of crash landing. Still, tension flickers when unexpected crises shove all caution aside. Floods ravage a farming community, and Anne demands to drive through the night to comfort families. Tim tries coaxing her into a dawn departure. She is already shrugging on a waxed jacket. In those moments he squares his shoulders, phones the security team, and goes along for the ride. Later, when exhausted courtiers shuffle into Gatcombe at midnight, he slips a blanket over Anne's shoulders before she collapses onto the sofa. No point scolding a hero in full stride. Wait until morning, brew tea strong enough to jumpstart a lorry, and quietly cross 2 optional receptions off her next day list. She protests. He holds firm. They compromise on cutting only 1. Progress. Progress of a quieter sort shimmers through Anne's staff too. Private secretaries once dreaded diary discussions, now they know the Admiral will amplify their whispers. When a junior aide timidly suggests spacing engagements, Sir Tim echoes the idea in a low, authoritative voice that even the princess can't ignore. It isn't mutiny, it's loving realism. And realism gradually reshapes an institution that often confuses relentless speed with unassailable value. Whether that realism translates into concrete reductions remains uncertain. The princess turns 75 next summer, and the palace PR machine is already toying with celebratory headlines. Anne at 75, unbreakable spirit of the crown. The phrase unbreakable, though stirring, also needles Sir Tim. Steel is strongest right before it snaps, he likes to remind colleagues. Better to temper the metal while it's still glowing. Tempering might look like a reshuffled week. Monday devoted entirely to a single charitable conference instead of 2. Friday evening reserved for a quiet supper on the Gatcombe terrace. Nothing flashy, nothing that would satisfy an Instagram algorithm thirsting for extremes. But longevity is built on monotony lovingly observed, 1 long exhale between trumpet blasts. If Anne resists, Tim smiles, shrugs, and buys another jigsaw puzzle depicting 19th century naval battles. Anne can't resist puzzling. Within minutes she's kneeling by the coffee table, sleeves rolled up, head bowed over 2,000 interlocking pieces. 4 to 5 minutes vanish in meditative silence. There it is again, the comma in her sentence. Observers say the nation, watching from outside the estate gates, may never fully grasp how much of their princess's glow belongs to the man just out of frame. They'll applaud her midnight speeches, her muddy boots, her iron handshake, scarcely noticing the Admiral gathering her coat at the cloakroom door. That's exactly how Sir Tim likes it. He didn't marry a headline, he married Anne, and Anne's mission is the country. His mission is Anne. If you happen to glimpse the royal couple this autumn, perhaps at a livestock show where the princess is judging rare-breed sheep, look past the cameras. You'll spot Sir Tim leaning against a gate, hands in pockets, half-smile tucked away as he tracks her movements like a navigator studying sea charts. When the event ends, he'll stroll forward, retrieve her glove, murmur something that makes her laugh, and steer her toward the waiting car. Another storm safely weathered. Another day saved from the jaws of overwork. Another reminder that behind the indomitable princess beats the steady pulse of a sailor who knows when to tie the ropes tight and when to let the vessel drift gently toward home. And as Gatcom's lights glow warm across the parkland, you can almost hear his closing words drifting on the evening breeze. How about tomorrow we stay in port? Tomorrow, perhaps, she'll agree.